on a day that would alter the course of his life forever. Inzunza made a grave error, one with far-reaching consequences. He mercilessly took the life of El Chapo's son. This brutal act would come to define his future in ways he could never have anticipated. Before delving into the intricate details surrounding the Sinaloa Cartel Hitman who killed El Chapo's son, it is crucial to unravel the enigmatic figure known as Inzunza, the Hitman. Let's delve in. Raised into a life of crime. In 2002, Inzunza's reputation was solidified in a storm of bullets when his convoy clashed violently with federal police, leaving behind a scene of devastation and loss. Despite evading capture, his notoriety continued to escalate. By April 2005, 3 years later, Inzunza once more demonstrated his power by intimidating local police officers patrolling his neighborhood, compelling them to retreat to the safety of their headquarters. Yet, hidden beneath his outward bravado lay the origins of Inzunza's audacious defiance, forged during his formative years amidst the harsh realities of his upbringing. Gonzalo Inzunza, better known by his alias El Prieto, was born and raised in Culiacan, Sinaloa, Mexico, on August 17, 1971. His father, René Inzunza, hailed from La Vuelta, a rural area near Culiacan deeply entrenched in the local drug trade. Unfortunately, René died when Gonzalo was still a teenager. Raised in a middle-class family, Gonzalo attended Colegio Sinaloa, a religious school, for his elementary and middle school education. His life took a darker turn at the age of 19 when he committed his first murder. During a party at his residence, Gonzalo fatally shot a man who had ridiculed him. After this incident, he escaped to Sonora, abandoning both authorities and former acquaintances, where he immersed himself in drug trafficking and organized crime. In a shocking display of ruthlessness, Inzunza unleashed a brutal retaliation after a trusted associate, Jesus, betrayed him by stealing from him. He coordinated a relentless manhunt, deploying a team of armed men to track down Jesus at a children's party, of all places. Although Jesus narrowly escaped capture, Inzunza's thirst for revenge only intensified, fueling a vicious cycle of pursuit and evasion. It was during this time that Inzunza caught the attention of Ismael Zambada Garcia, better known as El Mayo, a notorious figure in the violent and unstable world of drug trafficking. Acknowledging Inzunza's relentless resolve and propensity for violence, El Mayo recognized his potential. In a crucial encounter that changed Inzunza's destiny, El Mayo presented him with an irresistible proposition: to become part of the formidable Sinaloa Cartel, the most influential organization in the nation. Sinaloa Cartel tenure. Amid the shadows of Mexico's criminal underworld, a foreign presence surfaced in the 1980s, quickly ascending within the hierarchy of the Sinaloa Cartel. Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, known as El Padrino, wielded absolute authority over the Guadalajara cartel, tightly controlling drug trafficking from Mexico into the United States. However, the brutal murder of DEA agent Kiki Camarena shattered this empire, splitting it into two rival factions: the Tijuana Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. In this chaotic aftermath, infamous names like Joaquin El Chapo Guzman and Mario El Mayo Zambada became prominent. Contrary to popular belief, many insiders considered El Mayo the true mastermind behind the cartel's expansive trafficking operations. According to reports from the United States Department, Zambada orchestrated the smuggling of Colombian cocaine into Mexico via boats and possibly submarines, before distributing it across major United States cities using a fleet of vehicles. During the 1990s, the Sinaloa cartel experienced a surge in power through strategic alliances and sophisticated smuggling tactics. Led by El Mayo and El Chapo, the cartel expanded its influence into states and cities such as Arizona, California, Chicago, and New York, establishing itself as one of the globe's most formidable drug trafficking organizations, known for its ruthless violence. Within this treacherous world, Inzunza found his calling, driven by violent and sadistic urges. Recognizing his potential, El Mayo appointed him as chief of assassins, unleashing his reign of terror across Culiacan and beyond. Inzunza wasted no time in establishing a fearsome reputation as a ruthless killer who showed no mercy to his enemies. Inzunza operated as the chief assassin for the notorious drug lord Ismael El Mayo, overseeing operations in Culiacan and other regions of Sinaloa. Mexican authorities suspect him of orchestrating more than 80 murders during his time there, including the deaths of numerous police officers. Throughout his career, Inzunza evaded imprisonment and wielded significant influence over law enforcement. Despite numerous attempts to apprehend him, Inzunza evaded capture time and again, maintaining his hold on power through intimidation and bribery. In one audacious display, he physically assaulted a police commander and declared his territory off-limits to law enforcement. In an incident during the late 1990s, when federal ministerial police attempted to execute an arrest warrant in his neighborhood, Inzunza's armed men intercepted them. They forced the officers to contact their superior, who arrived minutes later. Inzunza confronted the commander, physically assaulting him and warning him against future intrusions into his territory. The police were disarmed and instructed to leave, highlighting Inzunza's brazen control over local authorities. Inzunza became notorious after a deadly shootout in 2002, where his convoy clashed with federal police, resulting in multiple deaths but allowing him to escape capture. In April 2005, 3 years later, Inzunza intimidated patrolling police officers in his neighborhood, compelling them to retreat to their headquarters. Later, when apprehended by Mazatlan Municipal Police while he was on his way to a drug rehabilitation center, where he intended to receive treatment for his addiction. At the time of his arrest, he was accompanied by 8 gang members and was found to have a cache of weapons, including assault rifles, handguns, grenades, and grenade launchers. Despite being photographed during his arrest, rumors persisted that Inzunza had bribed officials to avoid prison. He escaped custody with Ismael Bernal Cristerna, nicknamed El Mongol, whom he later murdered due to suspicions of betrayal. For Inzunza, such risks and brutal acts were all part of the job, thriving in a world of retribution and brutality, where loyalty and fear fueled his ascent. His gang of cutthroats would stop at nothing to protect their boss. With Inzunza's expertise and ferocity, the Sinaloa Cartel dominated vast territories and distributed more drugs than any other criminal organization on the planet. Inzunza was officially placed on the United States government's most wanted list of drug traffickers under the foreign narcotics kingpin. Alongside Manuel Torres Felix, another prominent lieutenant of the Sinaloa Cartel, this designation barred United States citizens from engaging in any business transactions with him and froze his assets. In Mexico, Inzunza was listed among the 122 most wanted criminals by the Procuraduría General de la República, which offered a huge reward for information leading to his capture. He faced 3 arrest warrants within Mexico, and was also subject to a provisional detention request with extradition sought by the United States government on charges related to drug trafficking. The fatal mistake: the murder of El Chapo's son, Edgar Guzman. Lopez's life unfolded against the backdrop of his family's profound influence in the Sinaloa Cartel. Born into the Guzman dynasty, he experienced the dual realities of wealth and danger from a young age. Raised under the watchful eye of his father, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Edgar learned early on the complexities and perils of Mexico's drug trade. Despite the shadow cast by his father's notoriety, Lopez maintained a relatively low profile within cartel affairs. He navigated a world where power, loyalty, and betrayal were currency, treading cautiously amid shifting alliances and ongoing rivalries. In May 2008, Lopez's life took a tragic turn. Lopez defied his father's strict orders to remain at home in Culiacan, venturing to Chicago, Illinois, with his friend Arturo Meza Cazares. Despite the risks of arrest, they completed their business there and returned to Mexico together. Their journey back to Culiacan was fraught with tension as they attempted to slip back unnoticed. Upon their return, driving a striking red SUV that fateful night, they unwittingly drew the attention of El Chapo's vigilante assassins. In the dead of night, a shopping center parking lot was abruptly transformed from a quiet haven to a scene of chaos and terror. Without warning, a convoy of 5 cars burst into the area, their tires screeching as they came to a halt. Dozens of heavily armed men, donning bulletproof vests, poured out of the vehicles, their sudden presence shattering the night's tranquility. With a thunderous blast, a bazooka round struck a sign high on the mall's wall, igniting it into flames. The gunmen, armed with long weapons, meant business. Witnesses recounted over 500 AK-47 rounds piercing the night air, triggering a wave of panic. In the aftermath of the relentless gunfire, the lives of Lopez and his friend were abruptly snuffed out. To this day, conflicting narratives swirl around the motives behind this massacre, with two versions of events prevailing. At the time, a deadly game of power and vengeance raged between the Sinaloa Cartel and the Beltran Leyva Cartel. The Beltran Leyva brothers, Arturo, Carlos, and Hector, sought vengeance, exacting it brutally by taking the life of El Chapo's son in the violent attack. This account marks the initial documentation of these events. Yet, alternative accounts suggest the assassins were under the command of none other than Inzunza. What could have driven Inzunza to commit such a grievous error and eliminate the son of his own boss? Speculation swirled that El Chapo had ordered the execution of a young man nicknamed El Gaucho, who happened to be present at the mall that fateful night. Amid the darkness, the hitman under Inzunza's command made a fatal mistake, tragically mistaking Lopez for his intended target, plunging into a catastrophic case of mistaken identity. Lopez's death echoed throughout Mexico, emblematic of the unyielding brutality within cartel operations. His sudden loss created a significant void within both the Guzman family and the expansive network of the Sinaloa Cartel. With one fateful mistake, Inzunza's thriving criminal career met an abrupt and brutal end. The repercussions of that night would haunt him relentlessly, the beginning of a reckoning that would define his remaining days. Drug cartel conflict. The pillars of Inzunza's authority within the Sinaloa Cartel began to crumble. The tragic assassination of Lopez marked this turning point. By 2010, high-ranking members of the Sinaloa Cartel made a strategic decision to relocate Inzunza to Mexicali, serving as a key base of operations for coordinating drug trafficking activities. In Mexicali, alongside key associates such as Zenobio Flores Pacho and Luis Fernando Castro Villa, alias El Checo, Inzunza oversaw a vast domain extending from Sonora to Chiapas and beyond. His strategic oversight encompassed major smuggling routes that spanned from South America through Central America to Sinaloa, and from Chiapas through Mexico City and Acapulco to the United States borderlands. Beyond drug trafficking logistics, Inzunza wielded violence to enforce control, particularly in Sonora, where he defended Sinaloa cartel interests against rivals like the resurgent Beltran Leyva cartel. Inzunza found himself unprotected after the top ranks of the Sinaloa cartel transferred their allegiance to the states of Baja California and Sonora. He chose Sonora as his base of operations, overseeing drug trafficking activities across several states. In 2011, Inzunza's past caught up with him when Manuel Perez Felix, a key figure in the drug trade for El Mayo and Inzunza, sought vengeance for an unauthorized murder committed by Inzunza. Realizing the danger he faced, Inzunza fled for his life, first relocating from Sonora to Baja California. Despite his efforts to evade pursuit, he remained haunted by the fear of Perez Felix's wrath, a constant threat hanging over him. El Macho's criminal empire expanded unchecked, bringing him substantial wealth and influence. However, his ascent was marked by violence, greed, and betrayal. He controlled a significant car theft ring spanning both sides of the border and orchestrated drug operations across multiple cities along the Pacific coast. Yet, his ruthless tactics led to numerous casualties among fellow Sinaloa cartel members, as he aggressively eliminated competition. Inzunza's volatile and brutal behavior drew widespread attention. He was notorious for unnecessary acts of violence, such as executing a prominent real estate agent he blamed for a police raid on his safe house. His disregard for innocent bystanders was evident in public shootings resulting from minor altercations. Despite objections from his lieutenants and officials on his payroll, Inzunza continued to thrive. However, his luck eventually ran out as the net closed around him. Shadows gathered ominously, signaling an impending reckoning. Escalating tensions forced Inzunza to flee Mexicali in early 2011, seeking refuge in Tijuana following threats on his life by Torres Felix, mourning the unsanctioned killing of his associate, El Pablo. However, his tenure faced fresh challenges from Los Garibay, led by José Manuel Garibay Felix, aligned with the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The ensuing conflicts triggered a wave of bloodshed throughout Mexicali and its environs in 2012. The tide turned decisively on February 23, 2013, with the discovery of Garibay Felix's tortured corpse near Guadalajara. His demise fractured CJNG's ties with the Sinaloa Cartel, prompting them to assert independent control over Jalisco's drug trade. The reckoning. The unfolding events complicated the dynamic between El Mayo and his trusted enforcer, leaving Inzunza vulnerable and unprotected. Moved by the higher ranks of the Sinaloa Cartel to Baja California and Sonora, Inzunza settled in Sonora, where he coordinated drug trafficking activities across multiple states. Inzunza's past indiscretions caught up with him when Manuel Perez Felix, a prominent figure aligned with El Mayo and El Chapo, relentlessly pursued him. Felix, incensed by an unauthorized killing attributed to Inzunza, tracked him down, compelling Inzunza to hastily flee Sonora for Baja California. Despite evading immediate capture, Inzunza could not shake the constant fear of Felix's pursuit, always feeling under threat and surveilled. Fortunately for Inzunza, Felix met his end in a 2012 shootout with soldiers, marking a stroke of luck for him. This event fueled the expansion of his criminal empire, which amassed immense wealth and power. Nevertheless, Inzunza's rise was underpinned by a foundation of violence, greed, and betrayal. He oversaw a significant car theft operation spanning the border and orchestrated drug trafficking networks along the Pacific Coast cities. His brutal methods and unpredictable behavior, such as unnecessary acts of violence and public shootings, attracted scrutiny and condemnation from both his cartel associates and corrupt officials. Despite mounting warnings and encroaching shadows, Inzunza continued to assert his dominance. However, despite his reign of terror, one fateful mistake was all it took to bring the mighty Inzunza to his downfall. The final showdown. The countdown had commenced, sealing Inzunza's fate. The war chief's erratic behavior had spiraled out of control, marking him as a problem that needed immediate elimination. Zambada recognized the necessity for action against his former enforcer, knowing it would be a daunting task. Inzunza's success in battling other crime groups relied heavily on his use of former Special Forces soldiers who formed the core of his hit squads. The solution emerged when someone decided to disclose Inzunza's whereabouts to the government, a risky move, yet unavoidable. On December 18, 2013, a special task force comprising Marines and federal police mobilized toward the city where Inzunza was holed up in a villa. It was known he would return to Puerto Penasco in a 3 SUV convoy, reportedly under real-time surveillance by American aircraft. The mission was underway, setting the stage for the ultimate showdown. As the operation unfolded, the stage was set for a disastrous confrontation. Inzunza, aware of the impending threat, prepared to defend himself vigorously. When his convoy encountered an unexpected blockade on the coastal highway, his bodyguards unleashed a hail of gunfire at the approaching Marines and federal agents. Chaos erupted as bullets flew, and the deafening roar of gunfire echoed through the air. In the showdown that ensued, Inzunza refused to surrender without a fierce struggle. When his convoy unexpectedly encountered a blockade on the coastal highway, his bodyguards immediately opened fire on the approaching Marines and federal agents, plunging the scene into chaos with a relentless exchange of gunfire. In a desperate attempt, 2 gunmen even targeted a hovering helicopter, but their efforts were futile against the overwhelming firepower. Inside his villa, Inzunza and a handful of remaining loyalists found themselves besieged. Nearby, a violent shootout erupted within a sprawling hotel villa complex, causing terrified residents to peer out in confusion. Inzunza frantically sought reinforcements to aid his escape, managing to hold off the advancing agents for a time. Each attempt by the Marines and agents to close in was met with a barrage of automatic gunfire, 50 caliber rifle shots, and grenades, intensifying the 3-hour-long standoff. Despite Inzunza's desperate plea for backup via a commandeered walkie-talkie, the tide turned against him. A precise shot from a Marine positioned in a nearby window fatally wounded Inzunza, who slumped down, mortally wounded. Although his gunmen created an escape route, Inzunza did not survive the encounter. His henchmen, now his only mourners, solemnly carried his lifeless body back to familiar territory as a final gesture of loyalty. Subsequent confirmation of Inzunza's demise came through forensic analysis of blood samples found at the scene where he fell. It was a conclusive end to Inzunza's reign, a reminder of the unforgiving nature of the criminal underworld where even the most powerful are not immune to their fate. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.